7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Christine, you do the
Yes.
roll call?
Mike Dougherty,
Present.
Ronald Spana.
Here.
Fred Schirmer, we know is absent. David Hosmer,
I'm here.
Glenn Lessig,
Not here at this time.
George McCoy,
Present.
David Fortin,
Here.
David Richardson,
Here.
Mark Chamber.
Well, we have a couple of,
I make a motion, we seat the two alternates who are here as, we got three
three
alternates.
alternates.
Oh, okay. Well, we seat Mark and we, take a flip a coin between these two guys.
I was seated the last time.
Okay,
Same
so-
difference.
So we'll take Dave.
All right, we have a motion.
We'll take Middle Dave.
We have a motion to seat Mr. Chambers.
That's old Dave.
Old Dave,
Old
yeah.
Dave. And Mr. Richardson. Get a second on that?
Yes, I so second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2015 meeting.
Second?
We have one correction on that. Okay, well, on the, under item number 5, Christine, when you get down, the new mill rate is 23.36, which is a 0.26%. It should be a 0.26 mil.
Oh,
It is.
okay. You're right.
And that is all I have. David?
Yeah. It would be under 7, second page, first paragraph. It says, Fred Schirmer, seconded by David Hosmer, made a motion that the chairman submit a letter to town attorney for review of the health insurance police stipend.
Yeah, I noticed that this morning, policy.
Okay,
Is that it?
that's all I have.
Anyone else have anything? All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, next order of business is request for forest management plan conservation.
Want me to speak?
Would you like to speak on that?
Sure. My name is Jim Kading. I'm here on behalf of the Conservation Commission. And what we're proposing is we would like to spend some money that we have to hire 2 foresters to do a forest management plan for some town-owned land on Quarry Perrin Road. There's a parcel there that's forested. We have an estimate of about $1,200 to do a forest management plan, and then there might be some additional costs if there were, for instance, a public hearing or anything like that on contract. So I think the total estimate that we got was about $1,500. But we have some of that money. We have that money. But what we would propose, and I proposed this to the selectmen earlier in the year, if we did this, if we hired these licensed foresters to do it, and down the road there was a timber harvest on that land, which is what the goal is for the town to make some money, that our funds would be reimbursed from that. The estimate, I know that the town had, selectmen had a bid on that that was higher than what we're talking about. We're saying, 30 to 40,000 is sort of a ballpark, a conservative figure on what could be expected. So basically, when I proposed this to the Board of Selectmen, they said, well, it's really the Board of Finance that would have the say in this. So that's why I sent you guys the letter, and so we're asking for you to consider that. We're sort of ready to move on this, actually immediately. I think these contacted the foresters, they're ready to do it. So any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
I got a question for you though. Is this just that one parcel of property, or are you gonna do all town-owned land?
This is for that specific one because that seemed to be the priority for the town. idea that we got from the selectmen. We've also, I mean, there's other forested town land, and we've contacted the Yale School of Forestry. They would be able to do this probably for free down the road, but it would take some time, sort of like not a priority. But if we wanted to do this fast, or, you know, within the next year, basically, I think we need to spend this money. So this would be for that specific parcel.
Okay, because I was wondering about, one thing you should probably look at is land that has been donated to the town for open space that is forested land, because that probably should be forest managed as well.
Right.
Like particularly the Darby property up by Pond Factory.
The 50-acre woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think
That's what I say. I think that you should consider having all town-owned forested land, forest managed.
exactly. I would agree with you, and that's our goal. I think that the idea was that this particular one, we were actually thinking about a harvest, so that's why, you know, there might be some income generated from that. But even parcels where there's not going to be a harvest expected, like I think the Darby property might be one, since that's somewhat of a special case, I'm not sure. Still, there needs to be a forest management plan for that, you know.
Mr. Fortin?
Yeah, just to pick up a comment on your question, not all the open space land that we have is owned by the town.
Right.
That's correct.
Right, it isn't, but
Most of it's not.
probably most of it is not, that's right. Homeowners associations and so forth have much of them too. My question is, actually I have two questions. My first question is, the Board of Selectmen isn't taking this action, right? Also, the Board of Selectmen is backed away from this, and it's the Conservation Commission's picking up the ball here, right?
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, the history back in the fall.
I just want to make sure that they're not also getting ready to spend money for the same thing.
Not that we're aware of.
Okay. And my second question would be, you have an estimate of approximately 1,500, and
Yep.
you're not quite sure where it's going to land.
Right.
How much money do you have available? And the reason I ask is if we were to agree to what you're asking for here, we might want to set a limit on that amount.
Right.
And want to make it comfortable enough that you can get the work done.
Right. I think that we have a, some funds that are outside of our budget, which we can tap into. I think it was a gift from before my time, so I'm not sure where that came from, but it's in a passbook account. That was given as, I think it was a grant or donation for this kind of purpose, you know, at our discretion. But aside from that, we have our budgeted fund. So I think that we could probably go as far as 2,000, I think would be, you know, reasonable.
That's reasonable, it's actually on my head.
So my question would be then, okay, if this money was given to them into a separate account, is that town money or is that, that's designated money?
It's designated.
So that we have no control over that?
Correct.
Okay, all we would have would be the control over the $900 line item they have in the current budget.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. And the other thing is, if it goes above those two limits, we could always take a tap into the contingency fund, rather than going for separate money out of the general fund, which would take and increase the budget,
Right.
which would affect Prop 46.
Well, they're actually not looking,
They're not looking for a whole lot.
they're not looking for a whole lot of money,
They're
and
not
basically,
looking for allocation either.
they're looking to spend money and just have that money replaced, if in fact they do.
Yes.
And that would be based on the harvest.
Right.
Anything that came to from the harvest would go into the general fund, but prior to doing that, what they're looking for is reimbursement for their expenditure.
Yeah, their expenditure of the money that was donated to them. Okay, we don't necessarily have to reimburse them for the budgeted amount of money.
Correct.
Okay, 'cause
But we in fact we could turn around and put that back in so they would still have that $900 line item
if they needed it.
if they needed it.
Or we could just take a leave it as such that we could take and, if they need additional funds, it could come forth with the Robert from Peters to pay Paul.
Well, if there's a, if there's a consideration for a larger scope
Yeah,
study, then the money should be just reimbursed so that you still got the money in the line item.
Right.
And the only issue is really the reimbursement.
Correct.
If there is a timber harvest.
Right.
The other thing too is that if it goes back into the budget, reimbursed in the budget, that's gonna be spent before June 30th next year.
Right,
So that they would have to take and do the rest of it.
right, but if they don't spend it before June 30th of next year, it only comes back anyway.
Comes
So-
back to the general.
Yeah,
the general fund.
So it's just
Right.
a matter of which pocket you're putting it in, the left one or the right one, and the real issue is the reimbursement, right?
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I have two. What is the acreage on this parcel, approximate?
I should know that right away, but I don't. I'm sorry, don't have it right at night.
This is the same one as last fall,
Correct.
right?
It is, yes.
It's over 100 acres.
Is it?
Yeah,
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know why, 130 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
yeah, there was a, sort of a survey done of it, and they were looking at harvesting about, not saying harvesting the full 90 acres, but a 90-acre patch of it, so
Right.
it's more than 90 acres,
I think the total acreage was somewhere around 130.
yeah.
Now, this will be a select cut, not a clear cut?
Oh, yes.
Well, the purpose of the forest management plan would be to, use the best forest management practices to recommend what should be done. So
So it won't be a clear cut?
that was our concern, that it should be done, using forest management practices, so it's sustainable. The idea that, people we consulted with said if we did this in the right way, you would be able to harvest the same parcel, every 7-8 years, which, is a sustainable harvest.
Yep.
And that was our problem with the original proposal. It didn't look like that was what was gonna happen, so.
Well, there's also the fact that whoever does the harvesting has to submit a plan to the town
Right.
to make sure that it's not all being clear cut.
And it should, and I guess our excuse me, our way of looking at it is there's a forest management plan first. Then any proposed cut would have to be consistent with that and then approved by the town as well. But it's sort of like doing the strategic plan first before you start, making chops at things, looking at the long run.
Any other questions? Your pleasure, gentlemen.
I'd like to move that we adopt the request.
No, this is gonna be all done through the selectman's office, because they're gonna take and go out to the town and everything else, so we just.
That's correct, but
So
what
we
they're
just- we
looking
just
for
have
is
to-
our blessing,
Right, so we just have to say, yeah, okay, they came to see us,
Right.
and, we agree with it.
and we agree with the plan, so.
How can you not?
Move that we state to the selectmen's office that we agree with the plan as presented by the Conservation Commission
To reimburse funds.
to reimburse the funds that they use from their special account.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Was that-
Dave.
okay.
David, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that?
The only question I was gonna, just right before you finish is, do you wanna say up to the $2,000, or do you,
Well,
or do you wanna leave it open from that?
Well, that's what I was wondering, if we've got an estimate of 1,500, do we want to set, do we
Well,
want to settle?
we don't know how much they have in their special account. They've got 900 in their line item, so if they got 600 in their special account, they've got their $1,500.
Well, but that's really not, it doesn't matter, because I think Mark's right, we probably should just say up to $2,000.
Right, they have to put
Because, regardless of where the money comes from, we would be willing to reimburse them for the expense. assuming that there's a harvest.
Right.
And that there's funds generated from the harvest.
Right.
If there's no funds generated, there won't be any reimbursement.
Then there's no
And
reimbursement.
if the cost is above what the harvest generates, there won't be a full reimbursement. And that's, I mean,
If it doesn't generate $2,000, I don't think anybody's.
I don't think you're harvesting
One
anyway,
tree.
but-
I think it's just better not to leave things open-ended. If it turns out it's $2,100, they can certainly come back and ask for another $100.
Okay, I'll be happy to amend that to a limit of 2,000.
All right, so we're gonna set a limit at 2,000, and that would be reimbursable dependent upon a harvest, to cover funds expended for the process. We have a motion, we have a second?
Second. You did the first.
No, the
Okay.
way that motion is presented is we reverse that for the full amount. When we are only required to reimburse them for the amount that's not in the budget. So
But if we reimburse them for the full amount, and they get this done in a reasonably expeditious timeframe, in terms of spending money,
Then they can go out with another
then
project.
they can go on with another project, which could include some of the things you suggested about, a wider thing and getting some other folks involved.
And if they don't, the money comes back.
And if it doesn't, it comes back to us anyway, so it's just kind of goes in a circle.
So are we in agreement on that?
I might ask that Christine read back the motion so we got everything in line. Exactly,
I know,
kind of
but we keep
convoluted.
changing.
Yeah, it got a little bit convoluted there.
All right. To approve the request to reimburse the Conservation Commission up to $2,000 if there is a timber harvest in the future.
Reimbursement for the forest management plan.
Portion.
For the forest management plan,
That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
okay, up to $2,000 if there is a timber harvest in the future?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Or when
That's
it's
my motion.
That's his motion. And Mr. Richardson, you still second that motion?
Yes.
All right. We're all good with that? No further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Good luck
You're
with
welcome,
that.
sir.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Better hurry.
Good night.
I'd like to move the next two items, just flip-flop them back and forth. Next, we have new business, followed by old business, and I'd like to discuss the old business before we bring up anything new. I got a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, so, new item 6, old business. In the past, we had talked about proposed bylaws and policies. Donna has sent out all the information that she could find that has been kept and recorded as far as previous policies that the board set. I'm kind of thinking what we should do, and this is just my idea, everybody can chime in, but I'm thinking that what we probably should do at this time is maybe come up with some, look this information over that we have, come up with some questions, and down the road here, get a couple of people to kind of spearhead this where we collect all this information. But rather than setting up a subcommittee at this time, because we don't have a lot of information, haven't had the opportunity to digest it, and 2 of our regular board members are missing. Not only that, we have an election coming up in November where 4 seats are going to be up for vote. So the entire good portion of the board could change. So I'm thinking maybe just as if we start collecting questions, and if we get a couple of people that would be willing to spearhead that, and I would ask, one is here tonight, because he sat in on the policies and bylaws for his past committee position, Mr. Fortin. if I could get you involved in that, and the other would be Mr. Rowland to start with.
I'm fine with that.
Anybody else have any ideas on that?
Sounds good.
My feel on this whole thing is, that, as I had mentioned to the previous treasurer several years ago, when I found out she was getting ready to retire, that she'd taken, make a book of all the various things that we have done and the things that we would have to do, and also all the oddball things like we went out, gonna be going out on the roofs, all of the special stuff that had to be done
Yeah.
and processed, et cetera. You know, I think that would be more advantageous than a group of bylaws. Because to me, bylaws are regulations. And the United States and every place in the United States is overregulated. And we are governed by the state laws, so I can't see any reason why the bylaws, why we need bylaws if we're already being regulated by the state. Whereas I can see there is definitely a need for a book with all of the policies and everything else that we come up with, so that we have it there. And also, we would not be taking and foisting all our policies on a board 5 or 6 years down the road.
Well,
That's my feeling.
And I agree with it, and I will say that Donna is currently in the process of putting
The
all
book
that
together.
information together,
Yes, I know.
which is great and much appreciated. But I think that, right now, by not setting up a subcommittee, just actually having everybody give some input as to what types of questions we think need to be answered.
They put in the book.
Any policies need to be covered. We're not actually forming a bylaws type committee, and when a committee is actually determined to be formed, it could in fact just be the policies committee.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's where we're gonna end up anyway.
Yeah,
We might have policies that are outdated.
right,
Yep.
and that's just my opinion on that. But again, like I say, so if anybody has questions, issues, concerns, or whatever, like I say, we ought to all jot them down, and we'll have Mr. Fortin and Lessig collect them, and down the road here, we can revisit that. It's an open issue. It's something that we can carry from meeting to meeting, and that way there, if something.
So therefore, I make a motion that we table the bylaws until after the next election.
As far as forming a committee, or
No.
as far as
making any formal determinations.
making formal determination? But we,
There's nothing that says we still can't take. and
Can't
put
discuss it.
Discuss it
Right.
in the meantime.
okay. Well, we have a motion,
I'll second that.
we have a second. Do we have any further discussion on that?
I think that's a good plan of attack.
Yeah, I think if they can, just putting together a list, one through, whatever the number is, so that it's not just this fuzzy.
Yeah, we have, there's a target.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Okay, so we have a motion, second, any other discussion?
Well, I do, but it doesn't really need to hold up the motion. What I was thinking is when Donna gets this book together, I'd like to get a copy of it.
Yeah.
First of all,
I'm
no
sure
matter
she-
what we do, I wouldn't mind going through policies anyway, and Dave, you've mentioned several times in the meetings about our unspoken, or unwritten policies.
Yeah.
Those are, I'd like to have you jot down, because those are things that we do all the time, we should be aware of. A policy isn't binding like a bylaw,
See,
but it helps us be consistent.
Right,
One of the problems that we have is that the book that was published on the governance of the Board of Finance was last updated, what, 1950 something, or 1960? Okay, and it's no longer published, and there's been a few changes, you know, so we should taken that updated book on of our own, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, the handbook was,
Right.
the state did was like in the
Yeah, well-
eighties or actually, I think it's like the eighties or nineties.
You know, like that's
That's
still.
when it was the last couple.
That's the last published, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think that we were looking to do anything to that level of
No.
regulation.
No, but I'm just saying, that's the last time something was done, okay? And there's been a lot of changes in state regulations and everything else since then. So we should take and upgrade everything state regulations so that we do not have to go through the code of the selectmen's conference room whenever we want to find something.
Yeah, I think if we were to get this volume information and put it in one big list, we
Yes.
could run down it, and what you're saying, run down it and say, this is a policy we don't follow, we don't wish to. Or here's one that we always follow and isn't written down, maybe it should
Maybe
be.
it should be.
You know, you could end up with a single sheet of paper written down.
No, you can't say that we don't wish to follow it, then it's not, it's not.
We can say we wish to rescind it.
Well, yeah, right now, they're just things that we do by motion, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing formal
All right, so we have a motion to put off any formal action on bylaws until after the November elections. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right. Next thing under the old business is the letter that was sent to the attorney on the insurance issues. I think everybody got my email this afternoon? Yes, no?
I haven't seen.
I had to look at it.
Well, anyway, I've been trying to get some type of response from the attorney for quite some time now. And I finally talked to him on the phone in person at 2 this afternoon. And,
No, I don't.
yeah. And he said, oh, I'm getting that right out to you. And I said, okay, thank you very much, because
I have it.
you
I
have
have
it.
it, you send you.
Because as I told you before, we have our meeting this evening, and I would like to have something to present. Now, he told me that he was gonna get that right out to me, and I didn't get it till 3:33 this afternoon, although it's dated yesterday afternoon. And
Takes a long time to see it.
yeah, and as you can see by the response that we have up until this point in time, there is no resolution one way or the other. I'm rather disappointed that we didn't get an answer earlier, that if they did not have the expertise to answer this, that they would have,
And what day what was the date of the request?
I believe they received it, I'm trying to think now, I think it was May 29th
May 29th.
was the date that they received the request, officially. So it's 6 weeks to basically get told that they have to go out to an outside expert to do a review on it.
Well, I'm glad I don't have them for trial attorney.
You wouldn't have to worry about a life sentence, you'd have spent it already, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that being the case, he also somewhat promises, because he expects to have our review completed by the end of July.
I
We
know
don't,
that he put 2015.
yeah, I'm glad that he put the July 2000, yeah, because if he left that open, we'd have been waiting till next July. But based on that, we do not have a meeting scheduled for next month. So what I would like to do is set a tentative date for a special meeting to review their response. Be the second Tuesday of August. Let's see what the date would be.
11.
The 11th, all right, so it would be Tuesday, August the 11th. Have a special meeting to review whatever information we can get. If in fact we don't get any information,
I would suggest that, we all be aware that we may call a special meeting. And then, when you finally get the letter from the resolution from the attorney, then you can give us a week's notice as to when the special meeting is gonna be.
That's fine.
Either that, or I don't see any reason, any pressing, time frame for discussing this.
Well, to be honest with you,
Because we're gonna be meeting in September anyway.
well, to be honest with you, it's more pressing than we all realize at this time.
Okay.
This is a real big issue. There could be a lot behind this, and I mean, Dave can tell you what some of the fines are that can be levied if we're not in compliance with some of these regulations, and
As in state regulations?
as in state and federal.
Okay.
And the thing is, like I had told him, the best we can hope for is that if we are not in compliance with state and federal laws and there are fines that can be levied, the best thing that we can do, probably, hope for, is to throw ourselves at the mercy of the court and say, hey, look, we discovered this and we are trying to correct it, you know, go easy on us here.
Well, not only that, we also say if there's gonna be any fines, we requested this information back in May, and 6 weeks later, we get the request from our attorney saying that, hey, we haven't got the expertise, we've gotta do this. Find the attorneys, don't find
Well,
us.
the thing is,
That's not how it works.
it's not how it works, and it's also
Because it did say if we thought it was that pressing, we would have followed it after 2
a
weeks.
long time ago, or we would have done something about it a long time ago. I mean, for the, how far they can go back on this, I have no idea. I'll tell you, I went to the ERISA website and I spent 20 minutes on that, and I had such a headache by the time I got done with that. It's
Well, the bottom line is it's landing in our lap now.
yes,
And we've got this saying he's gonna be done by July 15th. My feeling would be go ahead and schedule a special meeting, you can always,
cancel it
or reschedule.
or reschedule.
You can bring it in sooner,
Yeah.
leave it out if necessary. And I would also think about sending a reply to the attorney, perhaps politely expressing our displeasure with the amount of time we waited, and we're really expecting him to come through with some sort of answer by the end of July. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I've dealt with these people for some time.
I think at this point, the most important thing is to get something by the end of July.
yeah.
Because the penalties on this stuff is almost $5,000 a week. It's $100 a day per person. And if you go, the ACA part can go back as early as January 1st of this year. So it gets a little costly to play around.
Yeah, I mean, but the other, I mean, that's the maximum of what it can be. I mean, they can choose to waive, you know, you self-report, you self-identify, self-report. So I don't want to diminish it, but I also don't want it to be, for us to think that, you know, we know that it's 5,000 a week kind of thing. Can it be up to?
The penalty's $100 a day.
Right.
Per person.
But it can be.
That's just the ACA violation. And nobody knows what the situation is.
Right.
Because technically, it's not a penalty. Technically, thanks to the Supreme Court last year, it's an excise tax. So, who knows?
Well,
The attorneys will have had 2 months to review this by the end of July.
Well,
So I would expect.
actually, the way I'm looking at it,
I'll say 2 weeks. based on
they've had
the letter.
2 weeks based on this, because they really haven't done any review as yet. They've already basically thrown their hands up in the air, say, we're not the experts on this, and we're gonna have to farm it out, so.
I agree with Dave. I think we should send them a letter to the effect, you know, dear Attorney DiCrescenzo, thank you for your reply. Please bear in mind this request was made to you, give the date.
Yeah.
And we do hope that you will work in all due haste to get this done by the date you indicate here. I agree, we need to put a little,
Just gentle.
nice, gentle, but,
Stronger word than hope.
yeah, well, something
We would expect.
we would expect, yeah.
And we've scheduled a special meeting, tell them the date to review this information.
Yeah, exactly, showing that we have, due to the potential gravity of this situation. I agree.
So you guys,
Well, I would make a motion then that we schedule a meeting for Tuesday, August the 11th. Special meeting, pending review of information received from the attorney, and also that we come up with a letter to get out to them as soon as possible to maybe prod this along a little. So I make that as a motion.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
My only question is, would be, is this our responsibility, or is this the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen? The Board of Selectmen are the ones that have to take the action, they're the administrative people. Okay, do we have the authority to take and say we must do this?
We being the fiscal oversight board for the town,
Yeah, the oversight, but we don't.
we have a responsibility to do what's right and to make recommendations and,
Well, we don't have any, do we have any authority to enforce it on the Board of Selectmen? Who have to take and make the final action?
as far as that goes, I don't think that's the point. The point is whether or not we could be considered complicit in this if in fact there are violations. If we show that we've done everything that we could do,
Oh, right, exactly.
then therefore we're covering ourselves, and down the road, when the proverbial turn hits the fan, they can't come back and say, well, why didn't the Board of Finance do anything about it? The Board of Finance has been looking into this.
Oh, yeah.
They've been doing due diligence, and that's our responsibility.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of down the road if something does happen.
Oh, no.
You know, and I'm thinking of town-wide.
It was our decision when we wrote the letter, when we decided to write the letter, that we were going to get a legal opinion.
Right.
And then we were going to turn around and give it to the Board of Selectmen for them to take action when we got, when we were told where we were right, wrong, or indifferent. So here's the deal. This is what the attorney says, and this is our recommendation, that we do this. And then whether they choose to act or not, that's all on their head.
At least we've demonstrated.
But we have done, like I say, we've done our due diligence.
Yeah, so then, but if that's looking down the road, if we already finds or anything else, we'd have to figure out how to hold it pay for it.
Correct, yeah. That's,
Fall back on us.
then it's gonna fall back on us anyway.
I mean, to the extent though, the Board of Selectmen could just as easily take control at this point and drive this forward to accepting.
Absolutely,
They should
and,
Right,
They should have.
and,
don't disagree, but they could jump in today, they could jump in 2
Correct.
weeks when we get back, or they could,
But
they could
we-
do nothing until we hand them the letter.
we're doing no harm by proceeding the way we are, except for the fact that we're protecting ourselves and showing that we're willing to do our part,
And the taxpayer.
and the taxpayer.
That's right, which is what our
And
responsibility is.
spending the town's expenses.
Well, unfortunately, somebody has to do
Yeah.
that until the question's answered. We don't have a budget for it, so it's, you gonna write that letter?
I will write it up. I would ask, Dave, maybe you can give me a hand on that.
Sure.
We'll get that out. Okay. Any other old business? Being none, we'll move to new business.
I have an issue.
Okay.
It came to my attention a few weeks ago. The Board of Education passed a policy to subsidize tuition for children of resident teachers. And they're doing like about, I think they proposed a 50%. That, they can do that. That it's within their purview to do it. The thing is 10 to 22, which is what I asked about here when I first came into the room, very clearly states, expenditures by the Board of Education shall not exceed the appropriation made by the municipality with such money as may be received from other sources for school purposes. So, if they in fact go out and do this subsidized tuition, and they, you know, let's say they get 5 students, just for example.
So they, just to make a round number, say they generate $20,000.
Yeah, well, let's say they generate $20,000. That's fine, because basically it's $20,000 the town doesn't have to give them. I don't think they've figured that out yet. And it's been explained to them at least twice by me, and I've provided them with 10 to 22. When I raised the subject and I discussed it with Donna, she says, well, there are other special revenue accounts.
Other what?
Other special revenue accounts. I said, oh. She didn't have any specifics on. But if in fact there are other revenue accounts that are not accounted for in the budget, then they could be violations of 10 to 22. And basically what I'm suggesting is that we ask the town auditor, and this happens to be audit time, when they're reviewing Board of Education audit, to determine if there are any other special revenue accounts that are outside of the budget that we were providing, either revenue accounts or expense accounts. And if there are, to report them back to us, because they shouldn't be there. I mean, it's the only exceptions to 10 to 22 and this limit are if they had something like, let's say a kid loses a book and they have to pay for the book. Or they have a loss of something else that's covered by insurance. Those monies can be spent by the Board of Education and it doesn't affect the appropriation for the particular year. Or if they're getting money for custodial services, let's say somebody's using a gym, for example, and they're paying, you know, XYZ for the use of the gym, and the school is taking care of getting somebody to open it for them, clean it up, etc. The monies that they get for that, they can spend that. But other than that, they're not permitted to spend any money that isn't within what we approved for them originally. So I think we need to have the town auditor just take a look at that and make sure that if there are any special revenue accounts that we're not aware of, we need to be aware of them.
I think Marsha Marion, in one of her audits, had a list of that stuff, special revenue for the Board of Ed.
If there are, and they're listed under revenues in the budget, you know, there's a 5 million, it's listed, that's fine.
But no, but they're not listed in that memo, in that budget here.
No, they wouldn't be in there, but if they're not in that revenue.
On the Board of Education budget, in other words.
In the Board of Education budget.
If you look at the Board of
It's a
Education budget, the total amount, they will tell you what they're expecting in state, federal, and local grants. And that would consider other funding as well. That should be part of that calculation.
Yes, but you go back to some of the old, there's a lot of information that's in the current budgets for Board of Ed that is not in prior Board of Ed budgets. No, they're cherry picking what they're taking and putting in the budget. Okay, so that we don't necessarily see all of that stuff.
Wow.
Because I had reviewed budgets from prior years, and it had a lot of that stuff listed, but it's not listed anymore. So you
And
really
that's
don't know how
something, and that's something that when they say out of the $16 million budget, they're getting $5.5 million in grants funding, whatever, aside, the other $11 million is coming from the town.
But that's not true. There's more than that.
Well, what I'm getting at is they should have a breakdown of what that $5 million comprises. What is state, what is federal, what
It's
is,
just listed as state grants.
yeah, well,
Okay,
that's,
so-
that's not what it is.
Yeah, I think that they do have some listing of the grants. I've read the budget, the Board of Ed.
Right, but it should be, each one should be spelled out.
Yeah, there are some, I don't know if it's all inclusive.
Yeah, the real issue is if there are others that are not even mentioned. Like, the thing that brought this to my attention was the subsidized tuition. And, you know, if somebody thinks that that's money that they can just go out and spend on whatever they feel like, that's not the way it works.
Right.
They get a lot of leeway with transferring money around under 10222 that the town doesn't have, for example. But they also get the restriction of, you only had this much, and that's all you can spend, period. Well, the town sort of has that restriction too. But they get to move it around any way they want.
Yeah, I think by taking these students in and subsidizing, I think they're opening themselves a can of worms.
I agree, but.
I agree as well, but that's their problem.
Because number one, you gotta take and add that amount to the people's income, okay? Because you know, and I could just see myself, if I was a teacher down there, and another teacher's brought their kids in for just paying half of the tuition, I'd want that same kind of a deal, sweetheart deal myself.
So it's like $6,000, so
Yeah.
you want that added to your check.
Yeah.
Well, in actuality, if you had someone that lived in Putnam, say, they're already paying taxes in Putnam, and just because
But they're paying it in Putnam, but not.
But if they bring their kid here, now they're, not only are they paying the taxes in Putnam, but they're paying another $5,000 or whatever.
Well, it's the same thing, it's the same thing if somebody in town here sent their kids to Mariopolis.
They gotta pay for
They're
it.
gonna pay for it,
Right,
you know?
I agree, I agree.
All right, let's get off the subject, get on something else.
Wait a minute, before we go too far on this, so, I think that they probably are considering this as a revenue stream to help supplement their budget.
Right.
What I'm thinking is, one of the things I'm thinking, I'm not against the auditors looking in, I'm in agreement with that. But we have a new interim superintendent, who's a guy who lives here in Woodstock. Maybe we could consider asking them what it is that, not what the plan is, but how are they going to account for this money? They must have, somebody must have given this some consideration. If there's some policy or loophole, or some law or something that's entitling to do that we don't know about, maybe we could get that information from them as well.
Well, I would suggest that we simply notify the Board of Education that they are limited under 10222 to the money that was approved, period. And, you know, how they decide to finagle within those limits is entirely up to them.
Right, we have no control of
Yeah,
that.
but if they get in, if they're taking in other special revenue streams, that's fine too. Except that means if they're taking in $20,000, then instead of 11,597,000 whatever, it's 11,577,000 that they get from the town.
Correct.
It's actually, it's that simple.
I don't know, well, I don't know that it is the way I read that, I mean, you can interpret it either way. It says with such money as may be received from other sources. It doesn't say that
For
reduces it.
school purposes.
Yeah, so if you get if you take in, use the example, you take in $20,000 for school purposes, and you've got 4 additional students, let's just, for sake of discussion, say it's a teacher's aide, just because that math works, whatever. You say, hey, those 4, you're gonna bring in a teacher's aide. you're still living within the appropriation and you're putting that 20,000 towards school purposes.
No, you can't do that.
It doesn't say that.
Oh,
It
yeah,
just
it
said-
does. It says, the first part of that sentence says, expenditures by the Board of Education shall not exceed the appropriation made by the municipality. The appropriation by the municipality was
The budget we voted on.
17,000, whatever the number was.
And then it says, with such money as may be received from other sources.
That's right. So if they got
That's
other,
another source. So I don't,
it shall not exceed what was approved by the municipality with such monies as may be received from other sources for school purposes. They cannot exceed, even if they have revenues from other from other
yeah,
sources.
I don't read it the same way you do.
Well, that's pretty clear English, Mark.
Well,
But that's why-
we can disagree, but I mean,
But that's why I'm saying, maybe the Board of Ed could give us the rationale.
yeah.
They
okay,
have a legal
and
opinion
look, they may say
themselves.
that we're not planning to spend it anyway, so I mean, it may be a moot
Right.
issue from that perspective.
That's why I'm wondering is, we certainly can pursue it with the auditors, but at the same time, we should contact the Board of Ed and say, look, we got concerned that this doesn't meet 222, excuse me, and can you explain to us the rationale? Do you have a legal,
Yeah, well,
insert your own words there, but have somebody come to us and say, this is why we think we can do this, this is what we've been doing traditionally, and, and get to the bottom of it.
I think the best thing probably right now at this point would be to approach Mike Bernardi and find out what in fact their plan is.
What I'm saying.
well, and I think the reason I say the town auditor is a couple of things, and this is sort of goes back.
Well, at the same time, I'm saying, go to them, find out what's your idea behind this, and what do you think that you're gonna gain? And then when you get their take on it, then talk to the auditors and say, question for you, this is what the school board wants to do, and this is what they think that they gain by doing this. Now, you tell us, you're the auditors, does this meet the standard
Well,
for 10-222?
You're gonna have two issues. One, that's a legal question. Two, you remember last year, the issue of health insurance came up, and we had a discussion about it. And I pointed out early in the year, the issue of a health service account that the Board of Ed was maintaining and rolling from one year to the other. They've done this historically. The last couple of years, they haven't had any money to roll, so in the health service account. And the point was reviewed with the town auditor because it was a violation of 10-222. If you roll money over from one year to the next, basically you can't spend it, because if you spend it, then you violate 10-222, which is exactly what the auditor said. It would have been a December meeting, I believe. And that, in fact, what they recommended, and what many towns have done, is you set up a town health service account, so that the money is rolled over into the town health service account. Because a town can roll money over from one year to the next. The Board of Education can't. The reason they can't is 10-222. So it's, and my point with the town auditors is we know about the tuition thing, and I think you're right, we should ask Mike Bernardi, what's the story here? Do you think you're gonna be able to spend this, or are you just looking to reduce the burden on the taxpayer? If they're looking to reduce the burden on the taxpayer, more power to them.
Yeah.
If they're looking to spend it, they got a problem. What bothered me was, when I brought the subject up with Donna, is the first thing she said, well, they've got other special revenue accounts.
But I think that's where you ask the auditor for completeness.
Yeah,
exactly.
Is to,
And when the auditor comes in, I know this past year, actually, I believe the auditor spent almost as much, if not more time with the school than they did with the town hall.
Well, they should, it's
I
much
think, I
more.
was gonna say, I think they probably.
The budget's 3 times as large.
Even when you take Woodstock Academy out of it.
Yeah, it's still twice as large.
But it's also very complex.
Yeah.
But that's That's why the 10-222 issue was the issue. That's why they can't have a health service account, which is, by the way, something that we should be considering doing. They had mentioned it to us last year, is to set one up, set a minimum and a maximum to it. So if we have funds, for example, too much in the general fund,
We could transfer it to that
you can
account.
transfer it into that. And that way, if there is one of these years where the self-funded insurance, you know, runs over, we've already got some money set aside to cover it. And we can legally do that as a town. The Board of Education can't do that. Maybe you should talk, Mike.
I will contact Mike Bernardi and I will get his
Well,
take on it.
now, if that's the case, you take it out of a health service account, savings account, to take and cover something like that in the budget. That's gonna increase the budget for the following year.
No, you don't take it out of the budget for that. What you do is,
No, you're not taking it out of the budget, but you're spending the money, and it's money spent in addition to what amount was budgeted for that particular
but
year.
you would have to do that anyway. What I'm
We
saying-
would have to cover that cost anyhow.
We would have to cover it anyway. If they don't have any money to
Well,
cover
no,
it.
that's what I'm saying, but the following year, that would increase the base budget for Prop 46 calculations.
Wouldn't it have already been in the base? That's, I guess, if you're setting
It
aside.
would have already been in, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's what I'm maybe not following, but I think it would already be in the base.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get.
if you set aside $200,000 this
I don't know,
year,
that's something the accountants would have to come up with, as far as I'm concerned.
But all I was, and all the auditors were suggesting for is that's a way to have a little bit of money set aside for covering the risk on the self-funded health insurance program. And let's say this year, the health insurance program doesn't use all the funds. Let's say there's $20,000 left over that they don't need. Instead of that going into the non-lapsing account, which is all they can really do with it now, is transfer it into the health service account for the town side. And, you know, as money, if you have good years, you put a little money aside. But when you have a bad year,
you have something to draw from.
yeah, and you know, the auditors have suggested, set a minimum, don't let it get below, pick a number, $100,000. Don't let it get above a number like 250 or 300, because realistically, you know, you would have to have a catastrophe. Based
Well, with our
on,
stop loss, you'd have to have multiple catastrophes.
you'd have to have one of these things where like everybody exceeds.
Right.
That has to be set up similar to the capital non-recurring account.
Yeah.
So the money will go strictly into that and hopefully spent for that purpose only.
Right.
Then it's not a special appropriation.
Well, it could be stated that that account
Is what it's.
is strictly for health insurance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it
That's
would
it,
be.
done deal.
Okay, so I can see that wouldn't have any effect.
Yeah, but that kind of gets aside of the issue. The issue
Right.
really, ask the town auditors, are there any special revenue accounts that are not in the budget? If there are, we need to be aware of them, that's all. And then if we're aware of them, then the issue is how's that money being spent? Because if it's being spent for band uniforms or, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. That might be a different issue than if it's being spent for school operations. Because this covers school operations. Doesn't cover class trips or.
And that's why I think that the Board of Ed could certainly give us their rationale.
And I think they should be afforded the opportunity
That's right.
to clarify that first.
Yeah.
So I agree with you completely. We should ask Mike, he could send us a letter or something outlining what the plans are, how they do it, how they don't feel that it violates this. And then I think it's a courteous way to do it, certainly.
Are we gonna do this formally with a letter or just informal contact with Mike?
I'll contact him informally, and if he wants a letter, we'll come up with a letter, but I think that, just to contact him informally, and if he can come up with some type of, platform and mull it over and say, well, yeah, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't, or I don't think that's doable, and,
Well, that's what would happen if he was here tonight.
Yeah.
We'd have that discussion, but he's not here tonight. For somebody trying to follow along reading our minutes or have you, I don't know that it's out of line of reason to ask him to write something down that we can look at.
right,
on our hand.
right, absolutely.
I'd like to know how that thing that passed, because last I heard it was a dead issue. If you
Last I knew it
read-
was too, but.
Yeah, it was a dead issue. And, I'd like to know who pushed that through, whether that was Barron on his way out or whatever.
I don't know, I'm pretty sure he had a parachute on for that whole last one.
Who is the new superintendent? Is it Victor Toth?
Victor is the interim.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are still in the process of establishing a search committee, correct?
I think that they're looking for somebody, for a firm.
Right.
A search firm.
For a committee to, or a search firm.
A firm to bring back potential candidates, that is where they're at in that.
So Dr. Barron's tenure ended with the school year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to ask the auditors to review, or can we just do that? Just in a discussion?
We can go to the auditors at any time with.
Maybe that's, if you wanna have that discussion, well, then it's, you know, if there are special revenue accounts, we need to know.
We need to
about
know, yes.
well, I would just suggest you just do it with a letter.
You know, everything that we do that's above board and
Yeah.
follow along is the best way to do
Send
it.
them a letter.
Yep.
Requesting information.
And like I said, as far as,
Then you've got everything in hard copy.
and like I said, same thing with the board, that you can certainly call them,
Yeah.
but we have a concern. Can you explain to us the
Can you
justification,
give us
the
something,
rationale?
an explanation
Yeah.
that we can sit and look at and mull over?
I learned a long time ago, any kind of conversation, any kind of thing like that, you follow it up with a hard copy, just so they can cover your ass.
The other thing is, we may find that there's a way around this, or there's clearly something, frankly, that we don't know. And once we've established an understanding of it, and we have it in hard copy, we don't have to look at this problem again. But when you get into these things, I remember one time, somebody said.
Yeah.
That's why you need the book.
That
Yeah, the
that
book and
would
hard
go,
copy.
that would go into the Woodstock Board of Finance Book of Secrets.
That's right, open secrets.
So, I mean,
You don't need to put that in.
I'm not going.
That's
Was
what
it-
Yeah, it's on there.
Oh, jeez.
It's looking right at you.
It's just like I said, it's just simply, we have a concern, it would appear on the surface.
Yeah.
That it might be a violation of 10.22, can you give us,
And we would like some information in that regard.
that's,
Any other new business? All right, under correspondence and announcements, I have none other than, at this time, we will plan on having a meeting the 11th of next month. And
can you ask that the board then has that information available at our next meeting, not the special meeting, when we have?
no. I'll tell him that we would like to have that information by September the 8th
Perfect.
for that meeting. That way that'll give him plenty of time. And also in the meantime, we can get some of the other information probably through the auditor.
And that's gonna be in old business, September meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right, we have no citizen participation. Christine, would you like to add anything?
No, thank you.
Okay,
Motion adjourned.
have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.